Hi there! I split this off from my main video breaking down the House of the Dragon Season 3 teaser trailers because I want to put more focus on it. What is going on with that burning skull left in a fireplace of the Red Keep? This is notable because it's really one of only 2 or 3 new things in either teaser trailer that the spy community didn't know about already. That from almost 2 years now of covering filming reports on this, neither me nor anyone else either getting spy photos or getting spy reports, nothing came up for this. This is entirely new. There's only 1 or 2 other things that are like this, but here I'm focusing just on the skull. We have absolutely no idea what it is. On top of that, in the second teaser, we got this other shot of Rhaenyra weeping in what appears to be her in front of this skull. No longer on fire, it's on a table. Though I caution that could be deceptive editing. That might not be the skull, I'm pretty sure it is. It might not have recently been on fire. And Rhaenyra might be crying about something unrelated to it. Possibly. We know they use deceptive editing in the trailers all the time, so I want to lay out the possible scenarios for this rationally. Because a big point of my channel is I do not like to engage in empty speculation just for the sake of it. That this is pretty much what destroyed Game of Thrones its entire second half after it went off the rails, abandoned the book Season 5 onward, is rather than address, dear God, this isn't what the books did, this makes no sense, or even TV-only things that just, how did Jon get from point A to B, they're starting to teleport around. It wasn't about analyzing what you saw, it was selling people on crazy theories that are entertaining. It was about coming up with the most entertaining theory. That's why the news media types loved that show so much in the later seasons, because they could make up any crazy theory and speculation they wanted, and it didn't have to be accurate because it was in the future. It was coming up with the most entertaining speculation. I'm not doing that. I'm looking for the most probable explanation. This isn't a tabloid. We're just trying to figure out what are they doing. Which sometimes means I'm using this as a case example for this is a time when I have to honestly admit to you guys in candor, I really don't know what to make of this. That I have no solid leads that I'm going to piece together from. There is not a shred of evidence about where is this pointing to. In terms of filming leaks. What I can do is at least break down the logical possibilities. Though, then again, the writers might be doing something we couldn't possibly anticipate, so I'm just going down, these are the probable scenarios. Now, I'll be talking about character deaths in this, so full spoiler warning. Talking about character deaths. That, well, not to leave you in suspense, I think the most likely scenario is that this is the skull of Viserys, left there by Aegon as he fled. That is a common theory going around. It's common for a reason. It seems the most probable. Though I'll break that down. Though there's an outside chance it's the head of Criston Cole. That unlikely, like, it's 90% Aegon, 10% Criston, and there's a couple of other scenarios that I reject out of hand, and I'll explain why. But let's start with the first one. The idea that Aegon left his father's skull there as a screw you to whoever remained in the castle when he fled. Either Aemond or Rhaenyra. And he would think Rhaenyra was coming because the entire reason he fled is because Larys said she has new dragons, they're going to be coming here soon. Aemond wouldn't have left it there for Rhaenyra because the entire point is he got tricked into leaving the city vulnerable. He didn't expect it to fall. Why would he leave it for Rhaenyra? So it has to be Aegon, not Aemond. Aemond wouldn't have left it. How would Aegon get his father's skull? This is a bit more important to clarify, though, because I've seen some... I'll get into this, a speculation I disagree with. How would Aegon get it? Well, not him personally. He'd ask Larys to fetch it, and Larys in turn has, a network of agents and spies, so yes, physically Aegon could easily ask Larys, send a spy to recover my father's skull and bring it to the Red Keep. I'm going to do something with it. That's easily possible, but the one thing that might have confused some people is, remember that the Targaryens cremate their dead. But this cremation leaves bones behind. This isn't like a modern cremation oven or something where it's just the bones turned to ash. Like the books actually do mention, when they're burned on a funeral pyre, there are ashes and some bones left. They inter them in like an urn or something, and this was a little unclear before Fire and Blood came out. I remember back in like Game of Thrones Season 4, people wondered, well, are the remains of those other characters in the they mention them being in the Great Sept, and we actually, do they scatter their ashes? We only know they're cremated, not what they do with it. Fire and Blood did specify with like Jaehaerys and Alicent, they take the ashes and the remaining bones and inter them somewhere like in a mausoleum. Something is left behind. So just in terms of the physicality of all of this, yes, Viserys would have been cremated on a funeral pyre, but there would have been a skull left, probably left under the Grand Sept. It's not the Great Sept yet. Grand Sept. Aegon asks Larys, send a guy to grab it from the mausoleum. I want to throw it in a fireplace as a screw you to Aemon or Rhaenyra or something. I can see that. So the flesh was already burned away at his funeral. That is the most likely explanation. There are some variations on this that are going around, which my whole point is I want to refute these. I have seen speculation going around that not only is this the skull of Viserys, but that the Greens must have hidden his body and let it rot this entire time. That makes absolutely no sense, and I will reject it immediately. Just to start with, this is pretty obvious, guys. Why wouldn't the Greens hold a public funeral for King Viserys? A public cremation? Given that they already publicly admitted that he died. That when they crowned Aegon, they said Viserys is dead. And he's his successor in front of a big public ceremony. And not in terms of morality, but purely from a point of practicality. For appearances, that why wouldn't Otto, of all people, hold a public funeral for the previous king, for Viserys? That they've established that Otto, of all people, cares about public appearances. He's the one that said, no, we're going to have this grand funeral procession for Aegon's son who got assassinated, ending at the dragon pit where he'll be cremated as befits a Targaryen prince. Why would people would ask, the public, the angry mobs would be asking, why haven't they held a public funeral for the king? Why they didn't keep it a secret? They announced he's dead, so why would they leave his corpse to rot? That serves no purpose. I think the reason this theory is going around is because it was inspired by the fact that the book stressed, in the way the book did it, they left Viserys' corpse in his room for the better part of a day while the Greens' coup was going on, where they were scooping up all of the household staff that weren't their own agents, locking up lords and things. They wanted to make sure they got the drop on Rhaenyra and set up Aegon's coronation. So for a full day, his body was starting, decomposition gases and stuff, but that's not rotting. That's just a body being there. It's been rotting for weeks. We're not talking about a timeline of hours or days. We are talking about weeks and months have passed by this point. That even Otto, I said Otto would make sure to do this for public appearances. He left at least 2 to 4 weeks after the coronation, depending on how you count. Aegon incapacitated at Rook's Rest months after, and while it's not exactly clear how much time is passing in the TV universe, it's clearly a scale of weeks and months. Why would they leave Viserys' corpse to rot when they already publicly announced he was dead and there's no reason to keep it a secret? I think people are conflating this with how in the book they kept his death secret for a matter of hours over one long day to the point it smelled a little. That's it. I really do not see the point in that. And if you're wondering, well, how do they get a skull? Well, the bones usually survive the cremation. They inter them. Out of other characters, not Viserys, that there's two theories going with Viserys. The first one I agree with. The second one I reject out of hand, that why would they leave him to rot? That makes no sense. Other scenarios are other characters who we know die around this time. And maybe Rhaenyra would be weeping for them, maybe not. Again, cautious, maybe she's weeping about something unrelated, but the top possibilities, there's 3 other characters who die around this time that we know their severed heads will be around. Criston Cole, Otto Hightower himself, possibly Jason Lannister. How likely is each of these? We know from reliable leaks, Jason Lannister's severed head will be put on a spike at the Black's army camp after the fish feed in episode 2. And that Criston Cole's head will be presented at the Black's army camp outside of Tumbleton by episode 7. So it's not that much of a stretch to say, maybe, because we know Criston and Jason's heads will be displayed at army camps, maybe they send them back to King's Landing as a gift or proof. Maybe, just in terms of physical possibility, but I don't really think that's what's going on here. First off, I'd rule out Jason Lannister because he's simply not important enough. That there's no reason for Rhaenyra to cry about him unless she's crying about something unrelated, but then you get in just the meta aspects of they are drawing so much attention to the skull in promos, you wouldn't draw this much attention to the burning skull of Jason Lannister. He's just not that big of a character. So I rule that out. Maybe Criston Cole or Otto on the grounds that they're important enough to, it's this image that they're drawing. Why would Rhaenyra cry over Criston? I can see that as in the realm of possibility because she loved him once, she has conflicting feelings about it, or even Otto, in that, well, he is Alicent's father, it's her own family, and more the disgust, I can say this is potentially, I don't actually agree with it, that it's more one of those, my God, what have I done? I'm not a tyrant, I'm not Maegor, but here I am beheading my enemies, even though they are my enemies. I can see that. I think Criston would be more probable than Otto. Otto and Criston have both done things. She never loved Otto. Criston, I could even see you crying over someone you once loved but betrayed you. Criston and Otto have done so many things since then to subvert her, to start this war that led to her children's death, that I really don't think she'd cry about them anymore. It might be deceptive editing, though. It may be that they flippantly throw Criston's head in the fireplace, and then this is a later scene edited together in the trailer that Rhaenyra's crying about something else entirely. Maybe she's using Criston's head. Maybe it was burning days ago, and it's Criston's head, and she's flippantly using it as a paperweight. I can't rule that out. These might not be chronologically together in time, as scenes. I still consider it unlikely that I'm 90% sure this is Viserys' skull. Another scenario that I ruled out since then is when we saw it in the first teaser, I said maybe this is a dream sequence. We can't rule that out because now this is a show that has established it will have dream sequences, unlike Game of Thrones. But then the Rhaenyra weeping shot establishes, no, that the skull is real. This isn't just in a dream. So no, it's not a dream. This really happens. 90% sure it's Viserys' skull, left there by Aegon in spite of all those who would come after it. Even then, that raises the question, Rhaenyra doesn't immediately take the city. That the first person to find a skull left in a still burning fireplace would be Alicent and Daemon. Then again, the trailer could be deceptive, that it could be that what I think might be happening is that he leaves it behind for Aemon and Alicent to see on fire. And then only later, it's taken out of the fire, it's no longer on fire, it's left on a table, and then Rhaenyra comes and sees it, and then she's crying there. Then again, why would Alicent leave Viserys' disinterred skull in her apartment? That she'd order it taken back to the mausoleum. Outside chance this all happens in the course of one day, just as the city is falling, but I doubt it. Because I don't think the city's going to fall until episode 2 or 3. Then again, maybe Rhaenyra has ordered the skull brought to her from the mausoleum under the Grand Sept. Because think about it, she's never looked upon her father's bones before. She wasn't with him when he died. And that's the thing with Luke, that I have to look at his remains. Maybe they just didn't want to have a shot for practical logistic reasons of we're not going to film a scene of Rhaenyra going down to the Grand Sept again. That wasn't received well last time, but more likely it's, well, we're still securing the city. It might not be safe for you to go out to the Sept yet, but she immediately upon taking the Red Keep goes, send a guard to fetch my father's skull so I can mourn over it. If it's too dangerous to go out to the Grand Sept, well, bring it to me. That might be going on. So if I had to pick one theory, and I have to admit I don't know, the most sensible is that Aegon left it for Aemon and Alicent to find, they sent it back, but then Rhaenyra asks to see it. Probably. I have to admit, even like the private discords on stuff on with the spy community has no idea what this is. This is truly perplexing to us, and we don't even know where to begin. Though I will rule out that whole they left Viserys to rot thing of just, talk about this in the comments. Why? You're conflating it with that other thing from the book that wouldn't make sense now that they've publicly admitted he died. They would have had a public funeral. And you're confused, well, how could there still be a skull? Well, the bones are left by a cremation in the way they do it. So that's what I think is going on for the moment. I have to admit, this is one of those things we're going to keep an eye on, and like and subscribe for more reports as we get them, to keep track of this.